Hey y'all, thanks for tuning into another video. So let's talk about how to recognize self-abandonment in real time. Now this video is going to be about self-abandonment, but something that we need to address before we talk about that is checking our needs. I've talked about this in several different podcasts and videos, but something that we do that I think that we don't even realize we're doing is we make other people responsible for the wounds that exist inside of us. So we walk in the world in this wounded state, and everybody has core wounds. Everybody has something inside of them that is was done to them or was narrated to them that has hurt them. And our job is to heal or do as much healing as we can to those wounds without expecting the world to cater to our hurts. And oftentimes what will happen is, and I was in a relationship like this, and it is so difficult to watch someone do this to themselves and not be able to do anything about it. But oftentimes what we'll do is we'll say, well, I've been hurt, so it is up to everyone around me who has control over their ability to interact with me to do what I need them to do because I'm a wounded animal. And while that is true to a certain degree, the people in your life do have to have compassion for your wounds. They do have to understand your wounds. They do have to be opened to fully comprehending what has happened to you and how you are why you are the way that you are and how you came to be the way that you are. However, it is not their responsibility to walk on eggshells around your wounds as if they're grenades on a battlefield, because they're worried that they're going to do something that triggers you and sends you into this outward expression in an unhealthy way. And so when we're thinking about self-abandonment, one of the things that happens is you have to be able to identify your no, and you have to be able to say the no. But what if your no is a result of you wanting to punish the other person for not recognizing the wounds that are inside of you and not overworking to keep the space safe? And remember how I said I was in a relationship like this before, where he had parental wounds and abandonment wounds. And there were times where he wanted his family to check in. He wanted his family to do something. And because they didn't, that void was so large within him that he made it my responsibility to do the work that he expected from other people. And yeah, there's the part where we have unmet expectations and unnamed expectations that he had for other people, which is a whole nother venture into an unhealthy zone. But those unmet expectations for other people became demands for me, because in order for him to feel safe, loved, complete, etc., he needed me to overcompensate for the fact that he had these voids that were created by other people that existed before I even walked in the space. And the other thing that he would do is move the marker just so every single day it would be something different that he needed from me. So there was never a way for me to fully know how to operate in a healthy space in that relationship, because I couldn't tell what made him happy, what would upset him, because one day the thing that would make him happy, the next day would be the thing that upset him. You know, there was even a time where he had stopped working, lost his job, but I was still going to work, and he would still call me in the morning, or I would call him in the morning on my way to work, which was kind of early. And I would say, you know, you don't have to wake up really early to have these phone calls with me. Like, I understand if you want to sleep and not wake up to have these phone calls. He was like, no, I don't want things to change because my situation has changed. Fast forward 3 months into the time span of him not having work, and some argument ensued. I can't even remember what it was about. And while he was in his fit of rage, he says, and look at all the stuff I've done for you. I still answer your phone calls in the morning, every morning, even though I could still be sleeping. And I was like, well, I understand that you do, but also, like, I don't require that from you. I'm not asking you to do that. I told you that if you wanted to sleep, you could. And then I was chastised for not appreciating the thing that he felt like he was doing. And so the marker was moved so many times in that instance, in that relationship, for those same exact reasons, because realistically, he wanted to feel appreciated. And I was the only one who was feeding that for him. I was his only source of appreciation because work had gone away, which is where he got his huge ego boost. And so then he expected it from me. And no one person can fill the void that you haven't healed. And so that's something that I want us to resonate with, resolve with, and understand. If you have a wound and you have trauma and you have triggers, your person or the people in your life, yes, they need to be compassionate. Yes, they need to understand those triggers, but no, it is not their responsibility to curate a life where you feel safe all the time, because that cannot be created by a human. Now, you can go to God with those triggers and wounds and pains and hurts and ask him to create safety. But what I will tell you is external safety is not a thing. There is never going to be a space that you're in, except for perhaps in your own bed, in your own house, around no one, where you have full external safety. So what has to happen is you have to create a safety within yourself, in spite of the mistakes that your husband might make, in spite of the times that your friend might hurt your feelings, in spite of the, natural disaster that's happening outside of your doors. Like, your safety has to come from within. So if you are making the world responsible for creating that safety for you, you are always going to feel like you are self-abandoning, because you are the only one tending to your emotions the way that they need to be tended to, but you're pulling it and sucking it from the world outside. So when somebody requests something from you that you don't want to do, everything is going to feel like self-abandonment, because there's nothing feeding and fueling you on the inside, because your wound is so gaping and oozing and large. It looks like, so you might have a friend who cancels plans on you, and maybe you have a wound around not being enough. And so a story that you tell yourself is, my friend doesn't think I'm enough. She doesn't want to be around me enough to not cancel these plans. When in fact, your friend has the flu, or she's just exhausted from a really hard week, and it has nothing to do with you, but you make the meaning inside of your brain that it has something to do with this wound that you've had that you aren't fixing. And so now you're going to make her responsible for making up for the fact that she made your wound feel worse. That's not the same as checking your self-abandonment. That is making other people responsible for the peace that you feel on the inside. And when people have life that happens to them, people have desires, people have preferences, that doesn't say anything about their feeling toward you. It's just who they are and how they are. And if you can't healthily let those people have what their experiences, desires, and preferences are without it hurting you somehow, then there's a wound in there that needs to be fixed. That's just the reality. So before we even jump into how self-abandonment shows up in real time, we need to understand if it's actually self-abandonment or if it's us not fixing the wound that's inside of us and making meaning out of everything to be painful. Because if that's what you're doing, if you're making meaning out of everything to be painful, then you're always going to feel like you're self-abandoning, because you're always going to be hurt by something. So now that we've done that, let's talk about how to recognize self-abandonment in real time. There will be red flags. And when you're healed, these things will be in opposition to your natural resting state. So your natural resting state is going to be a place of calm, a place of inner solace, a place where you just feel at ease and in alignment. And when you're self-abandoning, you'll start to feel tension in your body. You'll feel the contempt in your yes when you speak it. You will need to be in silence because there's just too much chaos going on inside of you, and you'll want to be excluded from all things and in some sort of secluded environment because you don't want to have to deal with anybody else's demands on you. Self-abandonment produces those things. So when you start to see yourself tensing up, or when you start to feel the contempt inside your yes, or when you start to feel like you need to be away from everybody because they're asking too much, that's data for you to say, hey, wait, I'm self-abandoning way too much. Remember I said, if you're in a healed state, because if you're in that unhealed state, everything that anybody asks of you is going to feel like too much because you're too wounded to give to anybody else healthily. The other thing that we really need to think about is when those things start to happen, you can stop the thought and get curious around it. You can ask yourself, what do I really feel here? Do I feel frustrated, overwhelmed, used? What is it that I feel? Or am I connecting it to a core wound? Because something that I always ask myself when I start to feel those feelings and notice the self-abandonment tension in my body, I'll say, hold up. Is this a you problem, a them problem, or an us problem? Like something inside of our relationship. Because what you'll notice is if it's a you problem, it's something in there that hasn't been healed. If it's a them problem, it's them taking advantage of you and over asking and you not being able to set a boundary to keep that from happening. If it's an us problem, it's a dance that you do inside of your relationship consistently. They ask you to do something, you say, oh, maybe, or yeah, we'll do it. You do it, then you feel bad after you do it. So now you don't ever want to do anything with them again. And they ask several months from now and you say yes, and then you do it, and then you feel that same feeling again. And if you're unhealed, you're going to start to try to punish them. So everything they ask of you, you're going to say no. And no. And no again, just to prove a point that you don't have to say yes to them. The healed version of you is going to say, you know what? I can't do that right now. Not to punish anyone, but to be like, I need to value my inner feeling, which is this has to be a no. And then the last thing is choose alignment. You can speak, you can decline, you can walk away, you can say no, you can do all of those things. You have the power to stop the conversation when you start to feel yourself coming out of yourself and say, I'm going to need to think on this because I need to determine if I have the capability and capacity to do that thing. And if you do, and if it's not going to hinder you, and you say no anyway because you want to punish them, then that again is a place for you to be like, okay, I need to fix something inside of me, or maybe you're not capable of being in this relationship with this person because you can't do it in a healthy way. I have caught myself saying yes so many times in that past relationship, or doing things that I didn't want to do so many times in that past relationship because I was walking on eggshells, because I didn't want him to get upset. I didn't want him to feel sad or however he was feeling. And so I was trying to get him out of it. Eventually, there was so much contempt built inside of that relationship that I didn't even want to talk to him, because he was too exhausting to my nervous system. He always needed something, wanted something, moved the mark, needed something different, wanted something different, expected me to know what he wanted, and it was just too much. So today I encourage you, think about a moment in time this week where you abandon yourself and then rewrite it. Say, okay, I abandoned myself this time. This is how I would like to do that differently. And this is what I'm committing to myself to do next time. Just rewrite it in your head. The more you focus on what you want to be doing, the more you'll start doing that thing. And lastly, if you're in a space where you are emotionally wounded and scarred, please heal you before you start to bleed onto the people around you who love you and really do want the best for you. Don't call something self-abandonment when it's actually you not healing something inside of you and having outlandish expectations for the people around you to keep you in a space where you feel safe. That is not their responsibility. That's a you and God job. And it can absolutely happen. I know, because my outside world is chaos. But internally, I feel peace, and I don't have expectations for other people to create that peace for me. I heard a quote one time that said, allow people to do what they want to do and then respond accordingly. I have no control over what they're going to do, nor do I want to try to control it. I let them do what they're going to do, and I respond accordingly. But I also come from a place of healthy and healed so that I can interact with people even if I don't 100% I wouldn't put them in my inner circle. I can still interact with them from a place of peace. If this video resonated with you, please like, subscribe, share, go to all of my socials and follow me on there so you can get more of this information. I am just hoping that we could all be the catalyst for change that somebody needs to break free from the bondage that they're experiencing, so that we can walk into this world with free, healthy hearts, and we can actually enact the light and the change and the love and all the things that we're placed here for into the world, instead of living in a place where we're just in conflict with ourselves consistently. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.